Most salon and spa owners were never trained to lead. This is the SOS Small Business Success Podcast, where we change that. Ownership and leadership are not the same skill sets. Built on the 5 anchors for success: sales, operations, marketing, education, and mindset. Each episode helps you lead your team, grow your business, and build something that actually works through emotionally intelligent communications and strategic leadership. Now, here's your host, Bonnie Bonadeo, founder of the SOS Leadership Academy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the SOS Small Biz Success Podcast for salons and spas. We are on episode 151. And, as long as I've been doing this podcast, which has been many years, and even the radio show that I had previous to this, I never kind of put 2 and 2 together in regards to the word leadership and kind of my lifestyle of living on a boat and learning to sail and all of this stuff. So today we're going to talk about leadership and that no captain reaches the destination alone is how we're starting it. So welcome, everybody. I consider myself to be a leadership architect. Leadership communications, speaking, branding, but also then the really important element that I think we get confused by as far as a sequence is then strategy. If I learn to communicate more effectively, can I then put strategic leadership in place to be able to get the end outcome or the results that I'm aiming for? And that's what we're all about here. So I consider leadership as kind of 2 buckets, one being the communication side, listening, speaking, branding, and the other side being strategic processes, how to be able to plan, related tasks to be able to get the outcome that you're looking for. And our anchor today is, I think it's going to cover all of it because, you don't have a team or you don't have a business unless you are selling something, right? In our business, we're selling services. You don't have a longevity for a business if you don't have operational systems in place. If your team is not educated or you're not educated as a leader, there's a lot of failure that can happen in that process. And of course, marketing is one of those big monster areas that I think we all struggle with. We should all be grateful for social media because it has made our lives much easier and more cost effective, I think, in the end. But with technology and AI growing so fast, we're getting left behind. And it's hard to keep up on, where once, let's say last month, it was, you always want to make sure that your Google rankings were in place. This month, you want to make sure that your business is now getting recognized on AI. And that's a whole nother animal that you have to work with, right? And of course, mindset being the final anchor here, and overwhelm, being stressed, not being able to be consistent, not following through, fear losing your team, not sure how to hire a new team. All of those things kind of fall into the mindset category, which I can tell you most of my coaching capacity and consulting capacity is we're working on mindset. I'm giving people the belief that let's take it down a notch here. Let's focus in on where we can have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time and get the results that we're looking for. Because growth is not, leaps and bounds. It's small incremental tasks that you're doing in order to succeed with where you're trying to go. So let's talk about leadership. Yes. Okay. We are in a service-based business, right? And if we're looking at leader and ship and then leadership together, I kind of did some research on it because I was like, okay, this is kind of fascinating. So of course, there was the word leader, of course, that's been around for a very long time. And then ship kind of came on as an extension of it, which represented the commander. So it did tie back to, boating terms and sailing terms for sure. So leadership together is kind of like the commander of the ship. And then, of course, it kind of rolled into more of a corporate positioning word. But we have to be able to then look at what leadership is really all about for us and how we want to continue to grow. Now, Jeff and I just came back from a 5-week sailing trip. So we took our boat from St. Martin down to Grenada to pack it up for the hurricane season. And it was the first time that him and I did it alone together, which meant that he was the captain, I was the first mate, he was the mechanic, I was the chef and deckhand, and we had to play all of these roles. And one of the things that we had to make sure that we were doing was, planning out each of our destinations thoroughly, and then, looking at weather, predicting how long it was going to take us to get there based on winds. And, all of that is to some degree, you can plan some of it, but you cannot plan all of it. The weather can change immediately. The winds can shift without expectations. Storms and squalls roll in really fast. And there was a little nervousness for me, knowing like, I'm not that experienced at this. I'm very much a novice still in all of this, from boating to sailing. But I trusted Jeff. I trusted that we were doing the right amount of research to be able to be safe with where we're going. And as we were on this journey over the course of all of June and a little bit of July, there were 2 boats that were very similar to ours. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the pictures here. 2 boats that sunk. Now, most people think that, you hit land, like you rolled into an island. Well, that's not typically how sinking works. What happens is that people end up hitting reefs, shallow waters or reefs, which are, very hard rock that, grows up under the ocean. So where you think you might have a depth, of say 30 feet or 50 feet or something like that, then the coral can grow up, and then you may not have the clearance to be able to do that. So these 2 boats in these situations both sunk because they hit coral reefs. So you have to ask why, okay? And then we have to tie this back to our business. What's having us not be successful? What's having us not grow? What's having us not be profitable? And we have to step back. So one of these boats, they just didn't plan accordingly, and they hit a reef. I think in this particular situation, they were a little bit inexperienced. It wasn't their boat. They rented the boat, which, anybody can do. You don't have to be a captain. There's not really a captain's license in a sense, to rent a boat for a week in the BVI. So that was that situation. All right. Okay, got it. The other one was a situation where there were 2 captains on board, 14 children, teenagers. They were learning to sail and operate a boat. So you would think that with 2 captains on board and it being kind of a training thing, that they would have taken a little bit more time to plan out what they were doing. So they were in an area that definitely has a lot of risk of hitting coral reefs and not marked very well. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of sunken boats in that area for this very reason. So these young people were kind of at the helm, and the captains were, stepping back and allowing them to operate the boat. But then what happened was that all of a sudden they all started participating in lifting up the sails, getting the sails up, and somebody wasn't paying attention to where the boat was necessarily going, and they hit a reef and they sunk. Now, everybody was fine in both of these scenarios. Nobody was hurt. Everybody was fine. They did get rescued. But then you have to ask, what didn't you look into before you moved forward? And one of the things that they discovered was they didn't have the right mapping system to be able to see below the water, to know that where the reefs were. They knew that there were reefs and there was a particular way to enter into this particular island, but they didn't have the right mapping on it. So they didn't have the right tool. All right. So then this kind of ties back into our business. What tools are you missing to be able to grow your business? What tools do you need to learn? What tools do you need to invest in? It could be as people, resources, or support, time, money. These are the things that you want to be able to think about so that you're not sinking your ship. And if you're kind of barely above water right now because you're not making a profit, then you have to really look at what are the tools that are missing for me. It might be the right people in place. It might be hiring the right people to be able to support you to get to the direction that you want to go. It might be that you're trying to do too many things and none of them are getting the results you're looking for, versus maybe target focus on what you're trying to accomplish. So seeing this scared me as, a boat person, because this is very similar to our boat, and these situations can happen very quickly. and unexpectedly in some cases, right? So you got to make sure that you're putting the plan together to not have that happen. Now, our journey wasn't, problem free. We did have some issues with the motor. In our first 6 hours, we lost an engine. We had to turn back around and go back, get the engine fixed, only to find out that what we thought was the fix was not the fix, moved forward, ended up having the engine go out again. But at this point, we had to make the decision to move forward, to go to the island and hope that there was somebody on the island that was going to be able to help us figure this out and get it fixed. It did. We had a lovely journey from that point on. We did hit some squalls. We actually hit a tropical storm that for 3 or 4 hours, we were in just, massive rains, heavy winds, waves and currents that was kind of scary to go through. And then by the time we actually came into the bay where we were heading to anchor for that night, it was like perfectly calm. Like, here you are, you've made it. So you never know what's going to happen. You gotta plan for the worst and hope for the best in some of these situations. But planning is what we did. So we felt confident, and even though we didn't have a choice to avoid this squall, we saw that it was over on one side, but 2 of them merged together and came right at us. So again, it changed directions very fast. And at that point, we just had to kind of, work our way through it and get to the other side. But we did. We got to the other side. So here's kind of the journey that we did. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see kind of the journey that we did here. So started at St. Martin, went back, dropped by all of these islands here along the way. It was a beautiful, beautiful trip. I'm so grateful for it. And then ended up in Grenada and put the boat on the hard is what they call it. So we took the boat out of the water. They put it up on stilts and it sits there during hurricane season in Grenada, which is a fairly safe place because it's below the hurricane belt, but not always, because Hurricane Beryl 2 years ago came through and did a lot of damage to the portions of Grenada and the Grenadines in there, which was highly unexpected for them. And they had like a 2-hour warning to be able to do that. So again, were they prepared? For the most case, no. But these islands are aware that hurricanes come through there every year, so they have to be able to do that. So if we look at leadership, I want to just kind of read some of these here. A great leader doesn't abandon the wheel, but they also don't run below deck every 5 minutes to check every rope, fix every sail, calm every crew member. That's not leadership, that's exhaustion. And I hear burnout all day long. Between looking at Facebook posts, hearing it from my own clients, hearing it from other salon owners, that I connect with, that are not necessarily my clients. I hear this all the time. So then you have to be able to think, what really is your role as the leader? And how do you make sure that you're assigning other tasks in place? And how do you create the systems in place so you don't have to keep putting out the fires in that particular focus? Then you have to be able to look at who's next in charge, who's there to be able to support you and help you so that you can be the visionary leader, make sure that the business is carrying on to the direction that you want it to go. Who's then the first mate that is focusing on the daily actions, okay? It might be a manager. It could be a lead stylist, front desk person. Maybe you have a key educator in your salon. You want to be able to look at who's keeping the standards alive when you're not in the room, okay? Because you can't always leave the helm. You might have to stay at the helm, right? But for Jeff and I to be able to go on for 5 weeks and have the business run very smoothly without us meant that we have the systems in place and we have the leadership in place to be able to do that. And that, I think, is where everybody wants to be, right? Don't we all want to be in that position with our business? Yeah. So we got to find out how to get there, right? And I'm going to say that leadership is going to be the foundation for all of you to truly understand that is you become a better leader. You're going to trust bringing on the right people. You're going to trust delegating those responsibilities to the right people. And you're going to see that the systems are going to start falling into place. What the big word is now, the SOPs, standard operating procedures. For everything that you question, you need a standard operating procedure. Can't say that word. Couldn't say it yesterday either. So when you question things like, how do people deal with their family coming in? Do you charge them? Do you let them do it for free? That needs to turn into a standard operating procedure. Then you place it into the handbook, and your handbook ends up being, 100 of these little mini standard operating procedures. Now you have guidelines. Now you have the boundaries. Now you have people that understand this is how we do it. And this is the space we're going to stay within to do it. There's not exceptions around this, in a sense, okay? If there is exceptions, and maybe you need to update that particular policy that you're working with. Now, I'm not a big fan of leading by policy, but if you have policy in place, it sets the standard, and that's what you want, right? That's why they call it standard operating procedure. You need to set the standard of what the expectations are if you're going to work for me, if you're going to work in this business. And then when we know that, we can grow together. I can invest more time into helping you grow instead of putting out fires or making shit up as I go along over here, right? Now, the captain is also not the only one that knows the destination, okay? If the captain was the only one that was in charge, the ship would probably drift. Your team has to also be involved in what that direction looks like. And that has many different layers to it. Some people are really open booked with their team, where they're going, what they're doing. Some people just base it on, this is the way that we do business, and then I'm going to, kind of monitor and support you in what those growth opportunities are. But your team can't help you grow the business if they don't understand what the expectation is and where they're going. And this is I'll do this in the next podcast here, but this is what I call baseline leadership. Like, where is our neutral positioning? Okay. So if we're on autopilot, this is the direction that we're going to go. But if winds come in, if the current changes, if all of these variables happen, I might need to shift out of autopilot and take control of it, or realign the autopilot in there. All right. So it may be that you have minimal expectations, that you want your team to know the direction they're going. It might be more individualized, or it might be, hey, we're all in this together. Let's make up these things. Let's make up these rules as we need to, in that sense. So lots of variables in that. And leadership is not about controlling every wave or the wind, but it's about preparing your crew for when the waves are high and deep, and the waters change and the winds change. Okay. So just like our industry has a habit of, June, July, it starts to slow down a little bit. You've got people out of school, you've kids out of school, you've got people taking family vacations. So it seems very inconsistent to some degree, but then August, it kicks back in. September, it kind of, it has a little bit of a lull. These are normal things. So how are you preparing your crew for these changes coming up so that they're not sitting in the back and panicking that they're not making money, or that, their business isn't growing, type of thing. And then, of course, leadership is not just being the one in charge. It's a responsibility of shaping direction, guiding people, and preparing the crew to reach the destination together. And even if you don't have that management layer in place, who are what you'd consider to be your first followers, the go-to people that you can ask a little bit more of? You can get a sense of what's happening when you're not there. You can, request for them to kind of like have a broad overview of what's going on, and if something did happen, for them to let you know, type of thing. So there's a lot of trust built in that. Ultimately, you got to get to a place where you have a leadership team, and that these type of things are supporting you in your growth. When I talk about leadership and I mix in strategy, it's because I'm saying that the leader's communication skills are up to par, that strategy can now be implemented. All right. If you feel as though your leadership skills are not up to par, then that's where you have to start. So here's what I want you to do first. I want you to take the SOS Leader Quiz. So sosleaderquiz.com. It's very simple. It's like 8 or 9 questions, and it's going to tell you one of 3 areas: if you're an emerging leader, if you're a collaborative leader, or if you're a transformational leader. A goal would be to get to transformational leader. 80-20 rule definitely applies here. 80% of you are going to fall into collaborative. And I want you to think about collaborative as, yes, you have built a business. You've got a good foundation. You've got potential for growth, but you might be capping yourself out. You might be putting a ceiling on you. And I'm going to call that the communication ceiling, because at this point now, you don't know how to lead or scale to the next level. Okay. It's not about doing more. It's not about marketing more. It's in the leadership space is where you need to grow. I want to help you to be able to get to that leadership space quicker and faster than anything, all right? Because no captain reaches their destination alone, right? It just doesn't happen. So here's what's coming up, you guys. Heart and Edge Leadership, I do this monthly. So the next one is August 17th, September 14th. I'll have some October and November dates, and then we'll take a little bit of a break for the holidays. So it's the introduction to Heart and Edge Leadership. And this is where we really start focusing in on the level of communication that we need to have in order to grow our business. Now, that leads to the program that I offer, which is a 12-week leadership and coaching certification training. 12 weeks. I promise you it'll be transformational. I promise you you're going to get the awareness that you need of how you've been leading, how you maybe need to start leading, and to be able to make that shift. And the clients, the salon owners that I have that have participated in this program have have amazing testimonials, because they're like, I finally get how I'm being, and I didn't think I came off that way, but I can clearly see it now, and I'm shifting in the direction of being able to be that leader that my team needs me to be. 12 weeks, you get certified in emotional intelligence and coaching, how to coach your team. I promise you it's a fantastic program. Please, September's the last month that I launch it, just due to the holidays. It's hard to stay focused on it in that 12-week timeline. So January, it's going to come around again. But if you're interested in the September, let me know. We got to get it started right away. I am aiming for as many salon owners to go through this as possible. It'll make the difference. And, with things going on with the beauty schools right now, that gainful employment issue that might put all of our beauty schools, out of business, or 90% of them is what they're saying. We have to be prepared. This is not just a beauty school issue, right? If we don't have kids going to school and we don't have people coming in, to funnel into working for our business, we're not going to survive either. So we have to be able to plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? And this program is going to help you get that foundation going. So we focus in on leadership, communications. We shift over to strategy towards the end of that 12-week time. I promise you and guarantee you that you're going to get the results you're looking for to be a better leader. But in the meantime, if you can't make the September date and you got to wait till January to do the Ultimate Leader Certification course, then join us. And us is Bridget Sobis and Nikki Lee and I. We do what we call the Beauty Leadership Lab. It's a 3-day leadership lab. It's October 17th through the 19th in Fort Myers, Florida. The tickets are like $397 for 3 days. So it's a really good opportunity to get 3 coaches, 3 days, and the ability to kind of like set the tone of what you want to be able to do for 2027. Oh my God, I can't believe we're saying 2027. It's so wild. Yeah. So these are the opportunities I have for you. If you ever need to look at something else, or you might have something specific, please feel free to reach out to me, Bonnie at bonniebenedeo.com anytime. Send me a DM through Instagram or Facebook. I want to be able to support you in what this growth needs to look like for you, because what we know to be true is that business is not getting easier. It's getting more difficult, and you have to be more strategic and a better communicator in order to make those things happen. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time on the SOS Small Business Success Podcast.